Class 11, Chapter 18, Neural Control and Coordination. As you know, the functions of the organ system in our body must be coordinated to maintain homeostasis. Coordination is the process through which two or more organs interact and complement to the function of one another. For example, when we do physical exercise, the energy demand is increased for maintaining and increased muscular activity. The supply of oxygen is also increased. The increased supply of the oxygen necessitates an increase in the rate of respiration, heartbeat, and increased blood flow via blood vessels. When physical exercise is stopped, the activities of the nerves, lungs, heart, kidney gradually return to their normal condition. Thus, the function of the muscles, lungs, heart, blood vessels, kidney, and other organs are coordinated while performing physical exercise. In our body, the neural system and endocrine system jointly coordinate and integrate all activities of the organs so that they function in a synchronized fashion. The neural system provides an organized network of point-to-point connection for a quick coordination. The endocrine system provides chemical integration through hormones. In this chapter, you will learn about neural system of humans, mechanism of neural coordination like transmission of nerve impulse conduction across a synapse. Neural system. The neural system of all animals is composed of highly specialized cells called neurons, which can detect, receive, transmit different kinds of stimuli. The neural organization is very simple in lower invertebrates. For example, in Hydra, it is composed of a network of neurons. The neural system is better organized in insect, and when a brain is present along with the numbers of ganglia and neural tissue, the vertebrates have a more developed neural system. Human neural system consists divided into two parts: central nervous system and peripheral nervous system. First of all, central nervous system includes the brain and the spinal cord and is the site of the information processing and control. The peripheral nervous system comprises of all the nerves of the body associated with the central nervous system, brain and spinal cord. The nerves fiber of the peripheral nervous system are of two types: afferent fibers, efferent fibers. The afferent fibers transmit impulse from the tissue organs to the CNS, and the efferent fibers transmit regulatory impulse from the CNS to the concerned peripheral tissue or organ. The PNS is divided into two divisions called somatic neural system and autonomic neural system. The somatic neural system relays impulse from the CNS to skeletal muscles, while autonomic neural system transmits impulse from the CNS to the involuntary organs and smooth muscles of the body. The autonomic neural system is further classified into sympathetic neural system and parasympathetic neural system. Neuron is a structural and functional unit of the neuron system. A neuron is a microscopic structure composed of three major parts, namely cell body, dendrites, axon. The cell body contains cytoplasm with typical cell organelles and central granules body like Nissel's granules. Short fibers which branch repeatedly and project out of the cell body also contain Nissel's granules and are called dendrites. These fibers transmit impulse towards the cell body. The axon is a long fiber, the distal end of which is branched, and each branch terminates a bulb-like structure called synaptic nerve, which possess synaptic vessels containing chemicals called neurotransmitters. The axon transmits nerve impulse away from the cell body to a synapse or to a neuromuscular junction. Based on the number of the axon and dendrites, the neurons are divided into three types, that is multipolar with one axon and two or more dendrites found in the cerebral cortex, and bipolar with one axon and one dendrite found in the retina of eye, and unipolar cell body with one axon only, found usually in the embryonic stage. There are two types of the axon, namely myelinated and non-myelinated. The myelinated nerve fibers are involved with the Schwann cells, which forms a myelin sheath around the axon. The gaps between the two adjacent myelin sheaths are called nodes of Ranvier. Myelinated nerve fibers are found in spinal and cranial nerves. Unmyelinated nerve fibers enclosed by the Schwann cell that does not form a myelin sheath around the axon and is commonly found in autonomous and the somatic neural system. Generation of the and the conduction of the nerve impulse. Neurons are excitable cells because their membranes are in a polarized state. Different types of ion channels are present on the neural membrane, and these ion channels are selectively permeable to different ions. When a neuron is not conducting any impulse, that is resting of the axonal membrane is comparatively more permeable to potassium ion and nearly impermeable to sodium ion. Similarly, the membrane is impermeable to negatively charged proteins present in the exoplasm. Consequently, the exoplasm inside the axon contains high concentration of potassium ion and negatively charged proteins and low concentration of sodium ion. In the contrast, the fluid outside the axon contains a low concentration of potassium ion and a high concentration of sodium ion, and thus forms a concentration gradient. These ionic gradients across the resting membrane and maintained by the active transport of the ions by the sodium potassium pump, which transport 3 sodium ion and outwards for 2 potassium ion into the cell. As a result, the outer surface of the axonal membrane possesses a positive charge while its inner surface possesses negative charge and therefore is polarized. The electrical potential difference across the resting plasma membrane is called as the resting potential. You might be curious to know about the mechanism of the generation of the nerve impulse and its conduction along with the axon. When a stimulus is applied to us at a site on a polarized membrane, the membrane at the site A becomes freely permeable to sodium ion. This leads to a rapid influx of sodium ion followed by the reversal of the polarity at that site. That is, the outer surface of the membrane becomes negatively charged and the inner side of the becomes positively charged. The polarity of the membrane at the site A is thus reversed and hence depolarized. The electrical potential difference across the plasma membrane at the site A is called the action potential, which is in fact termed as a nerve impulse. At site immediately ahead, the axon membrane has a positive charge on the outer surface and the negative charge on its inner surface. As the result, a current flow on the inner surface from site A to site B. On the outer surface, current flow from the site B to site A to complete the circuit of the current flow. Hence, the polarity at the site is reversed and an action potential is generated at site B. Thus, the impulse action potential generated at the site A arrives at site B. Consequence is repeated along the length of the axon and consequently impulse is conducted. The rise in the stimulus induced permeability of the sodium ion is extremely short lived. It is quickly followed by the rise in permeability of potassium ion, which within a fraction of a second potassium ion diffuse outside the membrane and restore the resting potential and membranes at the site of excitation, and the fibers becomes once more responsive to further stimulation. Transmission of impulse. A nerve impulse is transmitted from one neuron to another through junction called synapses. A synapse is formed by the membranes of the presynaptic neuron and the postsynaptic neuron, which may or may not be separated by a gap called synaptic cleft. There are two types of synapses, namely electrical synapses and chemical synapses. At electrical synapses, the membranes of the pre and postsynaptic neuron are in very close proximity. Electrical current can flow directly from one neuron to the other across the synapse. Transmission of an impulse across the electrical synapse is very similar to impulse conduction along a singular axon. Impulse transmission across electrical synapse is always faster than that across a chemical synapse. Electrical synapses are rare in our system. At the chemical synapse, the membrane of the pre and postsynaptic neuron are separated by a fluid-filled space called synaptic cleft. Do you know how the presynaptic neuron transmit an impulse? Chemicals called neurotransmitters are involved in the transmission of impulse at this synapse. The axon terminals contain vesicles filled with these neurotransmitters. When an impulse action potential arrives at an axon terminal, it stimulates the movement of the synaptic vesicles towards the membrane where they fuse with the plasma membrane and release their neurotransmitter in the synaptic cleft. The released neurotransmitter bind to their specific receptor present on the postsynaptic membrane. This binding opens ions channel, allowing the entry of the ions, which can generate a new potential in the postsynaptic neuron. The new potential developed may be either excitatory or inhibitory. Central neural system. The brain is central information processing organs of our body and act as a command or control system. It controls the voluntary movements, balance of the body, functioning of vital involuntary organs, heart, lungs, kidney, etc. Thermoregulation, hunger and thirst, circadian 24 hours rhythm of our body, activities of several endocrine glands, and human behavior. It is also the site of processing of vision, hearing, speech, memory, intelligence, and emotion, and as well thoughts. The human brain is well protected by the skull. Inside the skull, the brain is covered by a cranial meninges consisting of an outer layer called dura mater and a very thin middle layer called arachnoid and an inner layer which is in contact with the brain tissue called matter. The brain can be divided into three major parts: forebrain, midbrain, and hindbrain. So the forebrain consists of cerebrum, thalamus, and hypothalamus. Cerebrum forms the major part of the human brain. A deep cleft divides the cerebrum longitudinally into two halves, which is termed as the left and the right cerebral hemisphere. The hemisphere are connected by the tract of nerve fiber called corpus callosum. The layer of cells which covers the cerebral hemisphere is called the cerebral cortex and is thrown into prominent fold. The cerebral cortex is referred to as the gray matter due to its grayish appearance. The neuron cell bodies are concentrated here, giving the color. The cerebral cortex contains motor areas, sensory areas, and large regions that are neither clearly sensory nor motor in the function. These regions are called association areas, are responsible for complex function like intersensory association, memory, and communication. Fibers of these tracts are covered with the myelin sheath, which constitute the inner part of the cerebral hemisphere. They give an opaque with white appearance onto the layer end, and hence is called white matter. The cerebral wraps around a structures called thalamus, which is major coordinating center for the sensory and motor signaling. Another very important part of the brain called hypothalamus lies at the base of the thalamus. Hypothalamus contains a number of centers which control body temperature, urge for eating and drinking. It also contains several groups of neurosecretory cells which secrete hormones called hypothalamic hormones. The inner part of the cerebral hemisphere and a group of associated deep structures like amygdala, hippocampus, etc. form a complex structure called limbic lobe or limbic system. Along with the hypothalamus, it is involved in the regulation of the sexual behavior, expression of emotion, reaction, excitement, pleasure, rage, and fear, and motivation. Midbrain. The midbrain is located between the thalamus, hypothalamus of the forebrain and the pons of the hindbrain, and a canal called the cerebral aqueduct passes through the midbrain. The dorsal portion of the midbrain consists mainly of four round swelling lobes called corpora quadrigemina. Hindbrain. The hindbrain comprises pons, cerebrum, medulla, and also called the medulla oblongata. Pons consist of fiber tract that interconnect different regions of the brain. Cerebral has a very convoluted surface in the order to provide additional space for many more neurons. The medulla of the brain is connected to the spinal cord. The medulla contains centers which control respiration, cardiovascular reflexes, and gastric secretion. Three major regions make up the brain stem: midbrain, pons, and medulla oblongata. Brain stem forms the connection between the brain and spinal cord. So that's it. Thank you so much.